Hello and welcome to the Live Your Dream Tele event, a free business development seminar sponsored by Lucas Legal Services. My name is Delora Butts Lucas, attorney at law and the legal coach. If you are interested in starting your own business, launching a nonprofit or ministry, but clueless about the legal requirements and exactly where this seminar is for you. I want to start with just a disclaimer. Of course, being an attorney, we always have our disclaimers. The information provided in this seminar is general in nature and does not constitute legal advice. As you can imagine, we have people on this call from different states. As a matter of fact, we had people to register even in my beloved Ghana, West Africa. So we have various people on this call with various interests. I found from your registration forms that there are people that are wanting information on starting their own business, launching their own ministry, and nonprofit. So we're going to provide a lot of information on each one of those areas that, as I said, it will be general in nature and does not constitute legal advice for your individual situation. Also, participation in this seminar does not create an attorney-client relationship or constitute the formation of a contract. Now, let's, as my dad would say, get down to brass tacks. First of all, if we were face-to-face, I would allow you to interact and engage, and I would ask the question, what is a business? What is a business? According to Florida statute, a business means any enterprise or venture in which a person sells, buys, exchanges, barters, deals, or represents the dealing in anything or article of value or renders services for compensation. So pretty much, as you can see from the definition, a business is going to entail any type of exchange of goods and or services between people. And I started this presentation off with just looking at what a business is and some facts about small businesses, just to kind of give you a perspective as we delve into this information. Some small business facts that I would like to share with you from BusinessInsider.com. 70% of small businesses are owned and operated by a single person, Small businesses employ 57% of the country's private workforce. 60 to 80% of all new jobs come from small businesses. It takes just, on average, about 6 days to start a business in the U.S. compared to 38 days in China. Why do I share these facts with you? Because as people who are looking to start your own business, launch your own ministry or nonprofit, sometimes the task before you can seem to be very daunting. But I share these facts to let you know that there are people that are doing this all over the country, and they make up a great percentage of the small businesses are run by just one person. Also, I share these facts to show you that in the U.S., it's very easy as compared to some countries to get a business up and going. So I just wanted to share those facts to kind of encourage you a little and also to give you some perspective. One of the things that as you're preparing to start your own business, launch a nonprofit or a ministry, one of the things that you need to be clear on is, why does the world need your business? Why does the world need your business, your ministry, your nonprofit? And if you'll stick with me, you'll see why this is relevant for a call regarding legal requirements, because these are things that are going to be important in setting up your business. So why does the world need your business? You're looking at determining what is going to be the vision of your business. What is the ultimate goal of your organization? And mission, how are you going to get there? So vision, where are you going? Mission, how are you going to get there? And you'll find that nonprofits, for-profit, small, large companies, corporations, they all have vision and mission statements. Sometimes we think about vision and mission statements only in the terms of a nonprofit corporation. But Apple, for example, one of the greatest for-profit companies that's out there right now, or at least most popular, their vision statement, for example, Apple is committed to bringing the best personal computing experience to students, educators, creative professionals, and consumers around the world through its innovative hardware, software, and Internet offerings. Okay, so that's an example of a vision statement. A much shorter one, example, Habitat for Humanity's vision statement, a world where everyone has a decent place to live. And those are some examples of vision statements. A mission statement, I'll use Habitat for Humanity, their mission statement, seeking to put God's love into action. Habitat for Humanity brings people together to build homes, communities, and hope. Again, why do I share these things? Because you need to be clear about why you're going into business, why you are launching a ministry, and why you are starting a nonprofit foundation. Because these will be, ultimately, your vision and your mission will be the foundation for your business or organization. And you'll see as we get into the presentation why these things are very important, particularly in setting up your organization. So next, I would like to look at core values. These are things, are guiding principles. These are the foundations from which you're going to develop your organization or your business's culture, your brand, your business strategies. For example, with my nonprofit foundation, Suddenly Joyful, the core values are do justly, love mercy, walk humbly, serve the least, and operate with integrity. What are going to be the guiding principles for your organization? From what basis are you going to make the decisions of whom you're going to help, what products and services you're going to offer? So you need a foundation or guiding principles for your organization. The next thing we want to look at is the business plan. All of the things that we've talked about leading up to now are things that would be a part of your business plan. So your vision, your mission, your core values, those are things that will be necessary components of your business plan. And your business plan is key to your organization's success. And whether you're a for-profit corporation or a nonprofit corporation or a ministry, you will need to have a business plan. Within your business plan, you would have a description of your business, a market analysis where you would have done research on your business industry, the market, the competitors, organization and management. How is your business going to be structured? How is your business going to be managed? Those details would be a part of that section of your business plan. Also, your product or your services. What are you going to sell? How is it going to benefit your customers? What's the product life cycle? Those types of things will be a part of your business plan. Marketing and sales. How do you plan to market your business? What's going to be your sales strategy? All of these things are things that you want to consider, work on, research, evaluate, plan, and put on paper as you prepare to launch your business, nonprofit, or your ministry. So now you've gone through these steps, you've sat down, you've laid out your vision, your mission, your core values, you put together your business plan, or maybe at this step, or you're working on your business plan. So if you're going to be forming a corporation or you're going to be operating a business, the next step is to determine what is going to be your business entity. What is going to be your entity type? Are you going to run a sole proprietorship? Are you going to have a partnership? Or are you going to have a corporation? So I want to take just a few moments to talk about those different types of business entities. And I'll give examples from a Florida perspective. But just note that the laws or the requirements for developing the various business entities vary from state to state. So you would need to know what the laws are for your state as far as how to set up each one of these different types of business entities. So, for example, in Florida, or a sole proprietorship is probably the simplest form of business in Florida. Anybody, from that matter, in any state, anyone conducting business without formally creating another entity structure is operating a sole proprietorship. So you may be selling T-shirts out of the back of your car where you're operating a sole proprietorship. Now, it may not be legally operating, but you are operating one. So we want to know, what are the requirements for operating a sole proprietorship? Or just, we want to look at the structure of it because, again, we have people on here from different states, so we don't want to get down into the weeds about it, but just want to provide an overview of these various models. So, for example, in Florida, with a sole proprietorship, if the business is operating in a name other than your full legal name, then one of the things that you would have to do is to file for a fictitious name. And this basically gives the public notice of who is in charge of this business. So if your business is Highway to Heaven Dry Cleaners, and you're operating under that, you would have to file the fictitious name, and you would be named as whoever the owner is of the business would be named as the sole proprietor, so that one would be able to identify who is operating the business. One of the big things with the sole proprietorship is the way that it is taxed. The business owner is the individual, and you are personally liable for the business debt, including all liabilities and taxes. So with the sole proprietorship, the profits and losses pass through to the individual. So the owner basically pays income tax on the profits of the business at the end of the year on their personal income tax return. So that's sole proprietorship. Next, we want to look at partnerships. Partnerships. A partnership is much like a sole proprietorship, except that it has two or more owners. Again, you can be operating a partnership without necessarily filing a formal document to create the structure. It becomes an operating business just by virtue of the fact of you doing business. And in a partnership, the owners also share the profits and losses on a pass-through basis, similar to the sole proprietorship, and how the profits and losses of the business are considered that of the owners. You do have different partnerships that you're able to form. For example, in the state of Florida, you could have a general partnership, or you could have a limited partnership. And those are, we won't get down into the weeds of that, but that's just to give you an idea of businesses that are operated by an agreement. What can happen, or what I've seen happen, is people go into business, they may have partnerships, but they don't create a partnership agreement. And the partnership agreement is very important because that dictates how your business is to be operated, and you would also have in there information about the shares of profits and losses, and also closing down, winding down the corporation, dissolution of the corporation or the partnership rather, things like that. So you want to make sure that you do have an operating agreement in place if you do go into a partnership. Next, I would like to look at corporations. So again, we're talking about choosing different entities. What's going to be your business entity? Is it going to be a sole proprietorship, a partnership, general or limited, or a corporation? And a corporation is basically created through your state. All of these are created through your individual state, wherever it is that you are going to be doing business. And the way that you would create your corporation is through filing the Articles of Incorporation. And the Articles of Incorporation are the requirements of what's to be included and the Articles of Incorporation is dictated by each state. So you would need to know what your state laws are concerning forming corporations. Some of the information that's generally included in the Articles of Incorporation would include, of course, the name of the person organizing the corporation, number of shares the corporation can issue, board of directors, things like that, with the Articles of Incorporation. With corporations, I'll talk about Florida specifically. There's two different types of corporations that you can file, and this is the case in other states as well. You have an S corporation, and you also have a C corporation. A Florida C corporation is taxed as a business entity, and in that type of corporation, the individual owners are also taxed on distributions of the profits they receive. So in the C corp, you have something which we call double taxation, where the corporate business, the business entity, and the owners are both taxed. With the S corp, taxes pass through to the shareholders. Another type of corporation that you have is the limited liability company. This is a type of corporation that is becoming the most widely used. It lets you elect how you want to be treated with respect to taxing and liability. And this is another type of entity where you want to make sure that you have a sound operating agreement, Another thing that is important for businesses, and this is also important for ministries, for nonprofits, and the for-profit businesses, are your bylaws and your policies. Your bylaws and your policies. Your bylaws are the most important legal document, that you'll have within your organization. Your bylaws outline your day-to-day rules of your organization, guidelines to keeping things running smoothly. The bylaws outline the structure of the organization. They establish and protect the rights, specify the duties and responsibilities of the organization members, board of directors, et cetera, et cetera. So your bylaws are very critical to your organization. Again, that's for for-profit, for businesses, for nonprofits, and for ministries. And one of the freebies, or the freebie, that I'm going to be offering tonight is a copy of a corporate bylaws. So you will be able to, you can check it out now. You can go to my website, lucas-legal.com, and download a copy of bylaws. And that will be up just for tonight. Okay, so bylaws are critical. Bylaws are crucial to the success of your organization and making sure that it's kind of one of those things like they don't matter until they matter. Okay, so you want to make sure that you have your bylaws in order. And again, bylaws are specific to each organization. Some of the basic components of bylaws, as you'll see, the organization's name, purpose, members, board of directors, committees, officers, meetings, conflicts of interest, the method by which you amend them. Those are some of the things that you want to have as a part of your bylaws for your for-profit, nonprofit, also for your ministry. Now I want to take just a few moments, and I hope I'm not moving too quickly through these things. I'll try to slow my pace a little, but there's just so much information that I want to try and cover tonight. I want to take a few moments to talk about your dream team. Being an attorney, I will definitely include attorneys on that dream team. You want to have someone that will be able to apprise you of your legal rights and responsibilities as a part of your organization or your business or your ministry. Board of directors are critical agents to the success of your company, of your organization, of your business. when you're choosing your board of directors, you want to make sure that you are selecting individuals that have knowledge of the organization's mission, people who understand the needs of the client and the resources required to provide for those needs. And you want to make sure that your board of directors have backgrounds that are different from but complement those of other directors, right? So you don't want 5 people on your board and all of them have the same background, the same experience, the same professional resume. You want some variety within diversity within your board of directors. Your board of directors are often responsible for reviewing financial statement results, contracts, agreements. Attorneys and accountants are great people to provide insight and suggestions when it comes to those kinds of things and other similar things that your board of directors will be responsible for reviewing. So that dream team, you definitely want to include a diverse board of directors. You want to have a CPA, a certified public accountant, on your team because there's lots of financial management that goes along with and responsibilities that goes along with operating your own business, ministry, or nonprofit. Local requirements are sometimes things that get overlooked, or as you're preparing to launch out into your own ventures, you just may not be aware of them. But in addition to those items that you file with the state, there are also various, or may also be various local requirements. Most cities and counties require a local business tax receipt. A lot of them are calling it a business tax receipt now. Formerly, they were known as occupational licenses. You may be familiar with that term. But most cities and counties require a local business tax receipt, and even for home-based businesses. So you need to make sure that you're aware of your city requirements, your county requirements, and also your State Department of Revenue. Depending on what type of business you're operating, you will have tax requirements. So you want to make sure that you're aware of the city, the county, and the state requirements for your business, to include any licensures that you may need. For example, in order to practice law in the state of Florida, you have to be licensed and admitted to the Florida Bar Association. So you want to make sure that you have not only what you need on the revenue side as far as taxes go, but that you are aware of what licensures are required for the type of business that you want to operate or products or services that you wish to produce. Federal requirements. Moving on to federal requirements. You may have heard or be familiar with the term called the EIN, or the Employer Identification Number. It's also known as the Federal Tax Identification Number. And this number, I like to say, it's somewhat like your business's Social Security number, if you can think of it that way. It's the number that is used by the federal government to identify your business entity. Not everyone is required to have an EIN number. If you have a sole proprietorship with no employees and some other qualifiers, you would not be required to have one. You could just use your Social Security number. But you are required to have one if you have, for example, if you have employees, if you have a corporation or a partnership, if you're filing tax returns for employment, excise, alcohol, tobacco, or firearms, you would be required to have one. So you want to check with the IRS to determine if you're required to have one. If you are a sole proprietor, you're not required to have one if you don't have employees or some of the other criteria, but you can get one. It's easy to do and it's free to do. You can apply online. You can even call over the phone and get one that way. So that's the EIN number that you may have heard of. And You will need to be familiar with your annual filing, your businesses, entities, your businesses, nonprofits, ministries. There is an annual filing that you would have to do with the IRS. So you want to make sure that you're aware of those requirements as well. I hope that you all are writing all of this down, taking good notes, because this is quite a bit of information that we're going through. Okay, some specifics for nonprofits. There were quite a bit of people who, when in the registration process, were asking about nonprofits and ministries in addition to businesses. In addition to the things that I've said already regarding nonprofits, I wanted to take some time to talk a little more in depth about nonprofits and tax-exempt status. So one of the first things I would like to point out is that nonprofit status is a state law concept. So, for example, in Florida, I can file and create a corporation, file my Articles of Incorporation, and file for a nonprofit corporation. I'm creating a nonprofit corporation. That does not mean that now that I have my nonprofit corporation, that does not mean that I'm tax exempt, right? So in order to become tax exempt in most cases, you would have to file for your 501c3 status, or you would have to file for tax exemption status. To be tax exempt under Section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code, that's where that 501c3 comes from. That's the appropriate section in the Internal Revenue Code. An organization must be organized and operated exclusively for exempt purposes, and none of its earnings may inure to any private shareholder or individual. And that comes right from the Internal Revenue Code. So tax-exempt purposes or exempt purposes would include charitable, religious, educational, scientific, literary, testing for public safety, fostering national or international amateur sports competition, and preventing cruelty to children or animals. And that term charitable here is used in a generally accepted legal sense, and it includes relief of the poor, the distressed, or the underprivileged, advancement of religion, advancement of education or science, erecting or maintaining public buildings, monuments, or works, lessening the burdens of government, lessening neighborhood tensions, eliminating prejudice and discrimination, defending human and civil rights secured by law, and combating community deterioration and juvenile delinquency. So as you can see, there are many things that fall into that category of charitable purposes or fall into the larger category of tax-exempt purposes. So if your organization is going to do one of those things, then it may qualify for that 501c3 tax exemption status. It may qualify for the 501c3 tax exemption status. Some organizations automatically qualify for the 501c3 tax exemption status. For example, qualified churches would, or religious institutes would. However, you would need to, in some cases, you need your tax-exempt number. For example, with grants, they require you to have a tax-exempt number. So you will find a lot of times that churches who would meet the criteria to qualify just by virtue of what they are, they still go ahead and file for the 501c3 tax exemption status in order to get that tax-exempt ID number, because that's sometimes needed for things that you would want to do. And why do people try to get that 501c3 status? Because well, of course, you're tax exempt, your organization would be tax exempt, but also when people make contributions to your organization, then those contributions would be tax exempt for that person. When you're setting up your organization, particularly those nonprofit foundations, you want to make sure that you're putting a plan in place because the IRS will ask about this. We'll talk about that in a moment. You want to make sure that you're putting a plan in place that will make sure, for lack of better words, you want a plan that will ensure that the funds that you are receiving will be used for tax-exempt purposes, the various things that I outlined, even if you're giving those funds to another organization. So say, for example, my nonprofit foundation, Suddenly Joyful. So if Suddenly Joyful wants to give money to Nanye Betre School in Ghana, West Africa, what is Suddenly Joyful's plan to make sure that the monies that it has received, that people have been given tax exemption for these donations, and we've been held tax exempt for receiving these donations, what plans do we have in place that once we give that money out, that those same purposes will extend? So those are things that you're going to have to specify and be very clear on when you are creating your application or when you're applying for your 501c3 tax exemption status. So 501c3 tax exemption status, how do you obtain it? You obtain that through Form 1023. Form 1023 is an Internal Revenue form, and that is an application for recognition of exemption under Section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code. That Form 1023 is the traditional application for nonprofit organizations, and you have to be a nonprofit corporation in order to apply for the tax exemption status. As you recall, I said when you create at your state level, you create a nonprofit corporation. It's a state status, and you apply to the IRS for your 501c3 tax exemption status with this Form 1023. As I mentioned, churches may be considered tax exempt under Section 501c3, even if they don't apply for the status. But of course, there are a lot of caveats and details that go along with that. This Form 1023 is a very extensive 26-page document, required great time, effort, and detail to complete, and can take sometimes up to a year or more for the IRS to process your form and to get that back to you. And there's usually communication going back and forth between you and the IRS if they're missing things or they need things or they need more information. This is where an attorney can be very helpful to make sure, one, that you get it right the first time, but also to be able to respond to those IRS inquiries. Some of the information that's requested in the Form 1023 includes a description of your organization's past, present, and planned activities, details of current or future compensation arrangements with officers, directors, employees, etc., family or business relationships between the officers or directors, your organization's conflict of interest policy, a description of your organization's programs, what are going to be your methods of fundraising, do you have any government affiliations, are you going to be operating in foreign countries, those types of things. For churches, some of the additional things that are requested: what's your creed, your statement of faith, your summary of beliefs, your formal code of doctrine, religious history, nature of religious services, membership numbers, ordination and licensure requirements. So all of the things that we talked about in the beginning when you're looking at your mission and your vision and your core values and your business plan, as you're putting together all of these things, make sure to have use and be as detailed as possible, because particularly those who are wanting to form nonprofits or ministries and you're going to be applying for this 501c3 tax exemption status, because those details will be an integral part of your 501c3 application or completing that Form 1023. But I have some good news. Good news. The IRS, in its infinite wisdom, it realized that, hey, we have all of these kind of small organizations that are sending in these major packets of information, and we really don't need all of this from them. It's backlogging our system. How do we cut this down? So in their infinite wisdom, this summer they released a streamlined application for applying for that tax exemption status. So they now have a Form 1023 EZ, 1023 EZ. This is a much shorter application, but there are, of course, lots of special requirements for organizations that are able to complete those. One of the major ones being that your projected annual gross receipts has to be less than $50,000 for the next 3 years. So that's one of the main caveats there. One last point that I want to touch upon with the 501c3 or those organizations that are going to be soliciting funds for your organization. You want to make sure that you are in consort with whatever your state law is. For example, Florida law generally imposes a requirement for nonprofit organizations that solicit contributions in the state to file a registration with the Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. So you want to make sure any required check with your state or any state where you will be soliciting funds, not necessarily just the state where your organization is. You want to check with those states where you'll be soliciting funds to determine if there is any type of solicitation registration that you would have to complete. Again, I want to, as we're coming to a close, I want to just say I know that this is a ton of information. If you go to my website, I'll just give you the address for my legal site. It's lucas-legal.com, lucas-legal.com. You'll see there's a variety of services that we offer. Being that I am a licensed attorney in Florida, some of those services are limited to Florida clients only. We do offer full legal representation, can represent you in every aspect. I've also found and have started now offering legal coaching for people that say, hey, I don't want you to do it all for me. Just kind of point me in the right direction and tell me what I need to do, which is a less expensive option. And if you go to my website, you'll also see there are documents available for you to purchase, and there are documents available there for you to download. Don't forget to go there to get a free copy of bylaws. I have them up on the website now. You'll see a big click here button on the home page. Click there and go to the document section. You'll be able to download for free a copy of bylaws, and that is just for tonight only. I want to thank you, those of you who have come on the call and who are listening in. I know there are a number of you who were wanting just kind of inspiration in this journey along. So I would like to invite you to stay on the call. What I would like to do now is thank all of you who are participating. If you want to follow up with me, my contact information is on my website, lucas-legal.com. But now I would just like to transition to a little inspirational part. So if you don't want any inspiration, thank you for being on the call, and you can feel free to hang up at this time. And I wish you all the best with your business. For those of you that want a little bit of inspiration, I invite you to stay on the call for just a couple of more minutes. Being a minister at heart and being one who seeks to fulfill the purpose for which I was created, I definitely understand your call to want to launch out and start your own business, your own nonprofit, your own ministry, because I believe that when God plants those things in your heart, that nothing else satisfies those desires. And sometimes stepping out and living your dream can be scary because you don't necessarily know all of what's next, or you don't know what to do, and you may not know what steps to take, but you just get a little inkling at a time of what to do. So I want to just take a moment to offer a word of prayer over your business, over your ministry, over your nonprofit, over the vision that God has put in your heart, that He would send favor and blessings and resources and wisdom and guidance and knowledge your way as you seek to do that which He has called, purpose, and created you to do. So let's just take a moment to close this wonderful time together in prayer. Father, in the name of Jesus, we come to you in prayer, oh Lord. Before we ask for anything, we just want to say thank you for this opportunity to come together and to hear and receive direction and instruction, or at least get a glimpse of some of the things that we need to be aware of as we prepare to step out and do what you have put in our hearts to do. Lord, I pray for each and every person on this call that you would order their steps, oh God, that you would direct their paths, that you would send them resources and finances from the north, the south, the east, and the west, that you would allow your favor to be upon them, that you would allow your blessings to overtake them, that as they launch out into their own ministries and build their nonprofits and their own businesses, that you would bless the works of their hands. Lord, everything that they set their hands to do according to your will, I pray that you would prosper it and that you would prosper them. Lord, we love you and we thank you and we give you praise in Jesus' name. Thank you so much for tuning in to this tele-event, Live Your Dream. Tell a friend. We'll be having one of these again very soon. You can follow me on Facebook, on Twitter. If you go to my DB Lucas website, you'll be able to access dblucas.com. You'll be able to access those Facebook and Twitter accounts. So again, I thank you for your time. I value you, and I appreciate that you are stepping out and doing that which God has put in your heart to do. Have a blessed evening.